I would. I would.
Why
assume.
none? Yep.
Okay, I'm going to welcome everybody and ask you to stand. I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. We're going to move into citizen comments. Do we have any citizens that would like to address the board? All right, moving right into celebrations.
Good evening, board members. I have a number of celebrations, but bear with me, it's a short agenda. I'll go off the website first. The first one was the Lansing State Journal hosted a best high school logo competition, and it garnered quite a bit of interest in the area. To say the least, it got pretty competitive. So we were fortunate to win that, and interesting seeing the results. It was over 30,000 votes that were cast. We had just shy of 16,000 total votes in the final round versus Portland. And anyway, it's kind of cool to see that, especially since the current version of that was part of our rebranding marketing campaign about 7 or 8 years ago. One of our retired teachers, Mitch Lutsky, wrote a book, one of his books on Williamston history, and in the book he cites some of the historical context of the color scheme and the kind of the origins or first reports of the Hornet logo or mascot being used. So I quoted a couple things out of one of his books, and they're kind of dating back to the first mentions of the Williamston Hornets in a publication, which was in 1933. So a little bit of history there for folks that are interested in looking, but if you want to know more, obviously, Mr. Lutsky is one of our preeminent Williamston historians, and I'm sure could tell you a lot more information. Moving on to homecoming week, very successful week, a lot of hard work by our high school faculty and student government to plan that, and all the schools, K-12, did a great job with representing Williamston's spirit through a variety of different spirit days and activities. Some new, some that we've had a long time. New for this year was the bleacher decorating at the high school, which was actually pretty cool. They did like country themes, or city themes, I should say. And I believe the seniors won with their Las Vegas setup on their bleachers, which was actually pretty well done, to be honest. They had lighting and everything. Great parade. It was a perfect day for it. And then we had at least in terms of recent attendance, as far back as we can recall, an attendance record for the dance, over 500 students in attendance. So that's an overwhelming percentage. And we had our German exchange students there as well. Many of them attended. So it was just a really good week, good event, and a great way to showcase the district. Moving on to the next story on the website, Ann Wade, who is one of our outstanding social studies teachers at our high school, qualified for the Fulbright Award. This is a competitive application program that she submitted and was selected for. And in addition to the honor of being picked for that, she'll also have the opportunity to conduct a research project or experience abroad, probably next summer, and focusing on some aspect of instruction or education. So just a few hundred teachers across the country get selected for this. She was one of them, and so a really nice representation and award for our district and for Mrs. Wade. Moving on to some stories that are not on the website. As noted in the most recent district newsletter, the high school was selected for the U.S. News and World Report Best High Schools list. That is for the 6th consecutive year. They have earned that distinction. They also received another award last week, but I'm going to hold that one for right now, so I have a celebration probably for the next meeting. As noted previously, the German exchange was here this year, spent a week, and we'll probably get a story posted up about that later, but always a great experience. I know they're going to have some new faculty advisors, I think, coming out on the next rotation, they said. But the kids had a good time. Dr. Delt actually hosted at his house their dinner, welcome dinner. And they got to be here for homecoming week, which was a new experience for them. They had not been out here on that week, so the timing just worked out really well. So Megan O'Rourke is the lead, another social studies teacher at our high school for that, and appreciate all her hard work. And as the board knows, the Fifely Foundation, who has now transferred their funds to us, but it's still important to recognize that that foundation is the reason that exchange continues to happen, and we thank them for their support of that. Also last week was the 53rd, hard to believe, but the 53rd year of fifth grade camp. And they had, again, just a perfect weather week. Kids were really happy out there, got a chance to go see that a couple days. Really engaged in the activities, and just, I think, really benefited, again, from just like a perfect day, because I've been out, or a perfect week, because I've been out there some years where it rains every day, and it could not have been a better experience, better weather for them. So the fifth grade teachers at Explore put a ton of work and time into that. Obviously a huge challenge to literally shift your classroom to a whole different location and create all those lessons and activities, but did a fantastic job. A lot of parent volunteers and support, and just a good thing all the way around. And then lastly, we have a short video I'll show from our first ever Pass the Torch walk. This was an event last Friday night, just before our home football game, organized by Heather Lewis, who is our district mental health specialist. And the concept is that our seniors, the class of 2025, are passing the torch off to the newest members of the Hornet family, the class of 2037. And I don't know that the film or the clip should do it justice, but anyway, we'll play a few seconds of it just so you can kind of get a feel for what it looked like. And there is theoretically some sound, but I think you can get the idea with or without it.
Time grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. So take the photographs and still frames in your mind, hanging on a shelf in good health and good time. Tattoos of memories and dead skin on
Hornet class of 2025 to our little Hornet, Williamston Hornet class of 2037. Go Hornets!
All right, I think that's good. So it was a really cool thing. They got partnered up, the kindergartners and our seniors got partnered up. The seniors had a little rock that was engraved with the Hornet logo, class of 2037, and gave the little token to the kindergartners when they met. A lot of really happy parents, which was cool, and a lot of really excited kindergartners, and interestingly enough, a lot of really happy and supportive seniors. In fact, I heard multiple folks at the high school today saying that they're still talking about it today. So I think that's a tradition that we're going to try to build on and improve and make bigger. We had over 60 kindergartners, not counting young fives. They weren't invited, just kindergarten itself participate, which is pretty good numbers for the first time doing something, and about the same number of seniors, so about 120 kids total. And best of all, no kindergartners were lost during the event. So again, kudos to Heather Lewis. She got some ideas from folks at Discovery. Cassie Fanner was out there to help organize, and then she just made it happen. So really cool event. So long celebrations this evening. I actually have one more, but I'll save it for later on. And that's what I have for now, pending any questions.
Okay. Moving on, we do not have an educational update, so moving right to superintendent's report.
All right, so our next two regular board meetings are on the 21st of October. We do think we're going to have at least one of the two bond contracts to you by then. It's being written up. Currently, the final touches are being made by our attorneys, but we're just taking our time on that for a number of reasons. And then the meeting following is on the 11th of November. You'll get the annual update on our standardized assessment scores, MSTEP, SAT, PSAT, all those things on the 11th, as well as our audit. So for the ed update you're not getting tonight, you'll get two of them in November. Committee meetings on the 17th of October, there'll be a policy meeting, and on the 28th of October, there'll be a finance and facilities meeting. Moving on to bond updates. Two notable pieces today, and I guess this was the other celebration I alluded to. We had our ratings call about a week and a half ago. We switched over to Standards & Poor Global. Just thought that Moody's wasn't moving quick enough to reflect the positive financial situation of the district, and that paid off. So S&P came back on Friday and then officially published it, I think this morning, that we have an A+ rating for the bond. Those are supposed to be sold next week or the next week and a half. And what that'll do are a couple things. One, it'll make the bonds more enticing to investors, but more importantly, it's going to have the potential to significantly decrease the interest rate for the community on those bonds. And so if you'll recall, one of the major reasons we really went after improving our financial outlook, going back 7-8 years ago, was because when we got to the point where we could go out and ask the community for a bond, they would be getting a good return on their investment, not only in terms of the things the bond would do for the district and the community, but also the financial aspect of that for taxpayers. And everything has worked out to plan for one reason or another. Very grateful for that support, but that rating is really good news. That's where we should be and should stay in terms of what that looks like. And yeah, just very, very positive on that front moving forward. The other bond update is we have decided to have French Associates, so that's the architectural firm. They're going to take on direct the role for coordinating the topographical surveys that need to be completed to start the projects. We did select Nowak and Frost Engineers, but the contract and all the specifics of that, although we do have the financial numbers, and they were the lowest of the interested companies or recommended companies, all that will be coordinated by French. But one of the reasons we've been slow on the contracts is to make sure we're negotiating those so they look the way we want now versus rushing now and then 4 years from now regretting that we didn't read the fine print and make those investments. So for example, negotiating with French, we removed a 10% markup for the topographical surveys that they would have charged for overseeing that. So now that 10% is gone. And when you're looking at a $45,000 survey, which was the lowest option, that's real money. So taking our time, but that piece has been finalized as of Friday evening, and those surveys should start to take place in the next 6 to 8 weeks. We're kind of in a little bit of a race against the winter, but we want to make sure those get done so those projects can start on schedule next summer. The last update is on the Safe Routes to School grant. So I talked with Supervisor Bloomquist at Williamston Township last week, and she gave me the updates on the final updates in terms of the things that were included in the grant, which was submitted the week of homecoming. The major omission from what we originally thought could happen with the Safe Routes grant was the sidewalk connecting Sherwood down to the high school down Putnam. The estimate for that came back at over $3 million, and the very maximum that grant would have awarded was $1 million. So at the end of the day, it wasn't even close in terms of what we thought we could achieve with that. However, the township did include the following items in the grant to get addressed. connecting Bismarck to the well, I call it the sidewalk to nowhere. I don't know how to describe it, but it's the sidewalk that runs behind the high school and just ends up in someone's driveway. And so actually connecting Bismarck through a sidewalk and a crossing, so that's actually a connected walking bike path versus what it is now. To improve the crossings at Van Etter, there are several subdivisions on Van Etter, and getting from one side of those subdivisions across Van Etter to the other side, which is where the schools are. Those would be improved with crossings and the push button signs and all those types of things. And then the sidewalk connecting the middle and the high school together, that is often underwater. Still, I was surprised that got in there, but it did, so that's a part of that as well. So those are the three main projects that would come as a result of that grant. We hope to hear back in March of 25, and if the grant is successfully awarded, then probably 2026 is when some of the design work would start. So interestingly enough, it would coincide with a lot of the projects taking place across the schools with the bond. So by 2028, we have the potential to see some really nice enhancements, both in our facilities and then connecting the neighborhoods around the area to those via these enhancements. One small note, Discovery and the high school were not included in the grant, and that's because they think that by not including those, that opens up the door to submitting another application down the road. Each school, if you recall, is worth a certain amount of money. So by holding two of those back, the other two schools that were submitted can get those projects achieved, and then at a later date, potentially submit another grant using those two buildings and do some other smaller scale projects in the area. There's a lot, if you attended any of the meetings or the groups that came in here to brainstorm from the community back when that was taking place a couple years ago, there were a lot of great ideas, and so hopefully by holding those two schools back, some of those other ideas can be addressed in the future.
Adam, I have a question. Is there any way they can talk about or look at that path that goes from the middle school to high school, add some type of motion sensor lighting? Because I know like here when winter comes and it's dark at 5:30 and you have kids that are practicing in the middle school, have to walk over there to meet their siblings that might be practicing, having some type of lighting on that path.
The one that crosses Raleigh Church, or?
No, we have the one right through the wooded area.
Is it on the high school property?
Don't we have, are you talking about the path? Don't we have a path that goes right from the middle school, like through that wooded area?
I know what you're talking about. He's talking about the sidewalk.
Okay, I thought when he was talking
It goes
about the one that
underwater.
was connecting, he was talking about, so you're talking about the one in front. I think that already has lighting
Yeah.
from it. Okay,
Yeah.
never mind.
She
And
was
for
talking
some
about
reason,
the
the one
wood-
that you were talking was underwater. I thought that they were thinking
Oh.
about cementing the
Path through the
path
woods
that's
is
kind of
what
like a
she's
walkway
talking about.
between the
I know what
middle
you're
school and the high
talking
school now.
Yeah, that was looked at, but it's not included in this round.
Okay.
Right, the one I was referring to is the one
One right on the
right
road.
out here,
Right,
if I think
okay.
I'm pointing in the right direction, that we often run into issues when the middle school kids are walking to the high school and they have to walk out onto Van Etter to get there.
Right,
It's
okay.
underwater.
It's underwater, yeah, and so again, one thing that also just remember is that, we don't own the grant. We were kind of the main effort to do the legwork to get the funding, because that's what the grant requires. So the parent surveys, the student surveys, the walking tours, the community forums, the demographic information, the questionnaires, letter of support. There was a lot of stuff that got put into it, but the township owns the grant, and they did the application, and all the proceeds will go to the township. They benefit the community as a whole and schools by making those pathways safer for kids to get to and from school. So it's a win-win, but we'll just kind of have to bide our time and see what happens in March when hopefully we get the results back.
Adam, can you clarify the sidewalk to nowhere? You're not talking about putting
Yeah.
a sidewalk by
So that's not the
tennis
official name.
courts that would go to
No.
Hickory, then to Bismarck?
Yeah, so the sidewalk would connect Bismarck, and it would head, that's heading north, right? So it would head north, and the sidewalk to nowhere, which again, not the official name, but if you get on the sidewalk behind the high school and you just start following that trail, it'll
Oh,
take you out
there.
like back towards Williamston Road.
Right.
And then as it winds around, it just ends up dumping out in someone's driveway on Williamston Road.
Right,
And there's just
right.
nothing there. There's nothing on the other side.
So
There's
you
no
put-
connecting. So it would extend out from Bismarck with the sidewalk and then have a regulated crossing, again, with signage and potentially a push button, that type of thing, to get kids across there. And then that sidewalk at the high school actually serves a purpose.
Now, with Mrs. Bloomquist leaving that position, is there any potential that priorities will change, or is the grant that is submitted what has to be done if it is awarded?
That's my understanding, yes. So they tailored the funding that was available, again, just using those two schools to address those specific areas. And I don't see any reason to believe that that priority would change. I mean, they're well known in the community that those are areas of need. And so
I know with some grants, once it's submitted, that's what you have to use the
yeah,
money for.
based on how much
So-
work went into this and the amount of detail, I would say that it's pretty much locked in. I don't see there being a lot of flexibility.
That's great.
How often can we apply for Safe Routes to School?
I don't know if there's a certain amount of years that has to go by. I know from talking with Wanda that this is our second application. We did one about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And she was skeptical that another application anytime soon, having used all 4 of the schools for this one, would be looked favorably upon. So I think that was part of the strategy with holding the 2 schools, so that we could go back for another grant and say, hey, these other 2 schools would benefit from X, Y, and Z. So I don't know how that plays out, because I don't know how the group that makes the decisions on the funding would assess it, but I know that was the rationale for why she took the approach that she did. We also talked about housing. That's a different topic.
Any other questions? Okay, we do not have any board committee reports at this time, so moving on to discussion items. The first one is the typing program. Do you want to just?
Yeah, I can take that, and I can pass this around too. This is just a user code if you want to write it down, if you want to go in and log into the type. But I mean, I've done it. It's a typing program with little cartoon things, and I mean, it's for second graders. This year we started although we have had similar types of things in the past, we brought a keyboarding class and to be taught by our librarian at the elementary campus. Obviously that shifted up a little bit with her doing her student teaching this year. The main reason for the class was looking for a place for students in our therapeutic learning classroom, TLC classroom, so that they could have their own independent ARC setting as we work to have those kids integrated back into their ARC rotation with their same age peers. One of the pieces of feedback we heard from our 3rd grade teachers over the years has been the lack of familiarity with composing on a keyboard was inhibiting our 3rd graders' writing, and thusly their results on the M step, where they are required to compose original writing on a keyboard. So we thought by strategically providing some explicit introduction to typing, that would benefit those students as they move on through upper elementary and into the middle school. The other benefit is now when they get to 3rd grade, they also have the one-to-one Chromebooks, and so they'll be able to do more original writing using a keyboard. But there's plenty of research to suggest that when you're trying to write and your cognitive energy is going into trying to figure out the mechanics of the keyboard versus the actual composition of what you're trying to say, that you're not going to produce the same quality of work. And so the theory is, as students become more familiar with keyboarding and composing, we'll see better assessment scores, and more importantly, their writing when interfacing with a keyboard and a computer, which is 99% of the writing they'll probably do, will be much better. So we ran a pilot at Discovery for the first few weeks of the year. The kids have enjoyed it. I can say it's also having second grader. He's liked the program. And it's not overly fancy, but it does the job, and it's not overly expensive, so. So the school is seeking permission from the board to formally adopt the typing program as curriculum and continue to use that at least through the remainder of this year, and then we'll reassess the TLC room and the ARC rotation for the following year and see if this is something that needs to continue or should continue.
So if this is something that possibly, because of adding that extra rotation, isn't needed next year, is this something that teachers could just do in their classroom?
Yeah, I mean, they could, and I guess,
You'd have to just.
I suppose third grade teachers are probably also have been trying to provide some basic instruction, but it is giving them a few weeks a year where they're really learning the basics, and that's the focus of the class. So, when you start with the home keys, just
Yeah.
like the way it used to be back in the day, yeah. So it could be, and if we zoom ahead a couple years too, again with the one-to-one Chromebooks, maybe that just organically starts to become something the students are more familiar with. But for this year, we thought this was the best way forward, and it's also very accessible, and it just fits in the schedule as well. So.
Any other questions?
Is this something that kids would have access to at home or only at school? If they want to practice at home?
That I don't know. That's a good question. I'll find out.
Anybody else? All right. Are we good to move this on for action?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Next one, the insulin litigation. I'm giving Adam a moment. So
Yeah,
I'm sure
sorry.
he's gonna- Nope, you're fine. Take it.
So this was a proposal that was brought to us from our attorneys at Troon. And Sarah Tynan and I attended a webinar some evening a few weeks ago where they outlined the basic rationale. So it is a class action lawsuit. The board, I'm sure, is familiar. We've had we've become a party of two successful class action lawsuits, one with Juul and one with their parent company, Altria. We are in the middle of another one, looking at the influence of social media and marketing towards adolescents and children. That one is yet to be resolved. This is very much the same way in terms of process. There's some legwork that the central office would need to do to provide the requisite data to the attorneys. And there's no risk to the district financially by joining the class action lawsuit. No timeline in terms of, at this point at least, in terms of when we would find out what happens. But the basic rationale for the class action lawsuit is in 2020-ish, the U.S. Senate had an investigation that unveiled that 3 of the major pharmaceutical companies had been price gouging for insulin. The cost of a vial of insulin is supposed to be around like $33, $35. And that's what they sell that for overseas. In the States, it was many, many times more than that. The result of that was district insurance costs were escalated more so than they should have been to cover the cost of staff, employees who needed that medication. So the class action lawsuit seeks to recoup the excess funding that were put towards those insurance costs by school districts as a result of the alleged price gouging by the 3 large pharmaceutical companies.
Any questions on that? Okay. Moving on to action items. Can I please have a motion to approve our consent calendar?
Make a motion that the Williamston Board of Education approve the minutes for the regular meeting held on September 16, 2024 as presented.
Second?
Okay, first Sarah, second Chris. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we do not have roll call items. Can I please have a motion to approve our out-of-state and overnight field trips?
Make a motion that the Williamston Board of Education approve the out-of-state and overnight field trips as presented.
Second.
So first Chris, second Dave, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, can I please have the motion of hiring a paraprofessional?
Move that McCara Patterson be hired as a paraprofessional with the understanding that, one, McCara Patterson is interested in the paraprofessional position at Discovery Elementary. Two, through the application process, administrative staff confirm that McCara Patterson has a felony on a criminal background check, but not for a listed offense as defined in the Sex Offenders Registration Act, MCL 28.72. Three, Discovery Elementary Principal Cassie Fander met with McCara Patterson to review the circumstance of her conviction. Four, pursuant to the revised school code sections 1230 parentheses 9, 1238 parentheses 10, and 1230G, and after careful review of McCara Patterson's criminal background check and other available information, Superintendent Adam Spina is recommending McCara Patterson's employment assignment with the district. Superintendent Adam Spina has provided the board with written reasons for his recommendation. 5, the board has carefully reviewed Superintendent Spina's recommendation.
Second.
So I have first Dave, second Chris, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I do need to go back, and I apologize, I wasn't thinking. Amanda is not here, who's our secretary, so Dave, will you act as our acting secretary?
If I can borrow a pen. Thank you.
So we're appointing Dave to be our acting secretary tonight. I apologize, I should have done that at the very beginning of the meeting. So our bold girls are listed. We have some correspondence from 3 individuals. This is then the second time that we can do citizen comments at the end of the meeting. We have no citizen comments. So we are at board member reports and requests.
The PTSA is doing a not so scary Halloween event coming up. I'm sorry, I don't recall the date off the top of my head, but it's the first time that they're trying this, and hopefully it'll be well attended and fun for everyone.
Oh, I did say that. I can't remember what they said. Any other? I just have 2. One, I have had I know several parents that have seniors and some juniors who have attended, obviously, several homecoming dances. They said this was the best one ever. I also heard that from a couple freshmen too, so I'm not sure what was different, but kudos to everyone involved. They seem to have a really good time. Second, the torch event that happened at the football game, I happened to be in the stands, and parents were just giddy over this, thinking that their seniors were participating. There were several moms who cried, thinking that other parents who have juniors thinking, yay, my kid gets to do this next year. So kudos, it was a pretty amazing event. I also do want to give kudos to Heather Lewis, who kind of spearheaded this. But I also do not want to forget, this was an idea from Peggy Weiss, the secretary at Discovery. She also, it's my understanding, her and the principal did a lot of work making sure, checking parents in, making sure kids got where they needed to be, and going back and brainstorming the idea. So those 2 individuals also did play a big role into that passing the torch idea, which seemed to be loved by everybody. Anything else? Okay, I will take a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
First by Chris, second by Deb. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.